The unit circle. The unit circle is a circle with a radius 1 centered at the origin, and this is the equation for that unit circle. So we have on the right side the unit circle we're going to use in trigonometry to solve some trigonometry questions. But the thing it is, there is a strategy, okay? There is a strategy we need to use which will make it easier for us to remember. But before I show you that strategy, I want to understand the basic, okay? The basic or the component of a unit circle. So on my right side here, we have that unit circle. So the radius here is 1. And we see we have 4 points on the unit circle. Okay. So for the coordinate, the first coordinate is the x value and the next coordinate is the y value. You see that we have a 4 quadrants. So from this side, we have a quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and the quadrant 4. It's very important to understand the basic before I show you the strategy. On the left side, you see that, okay, we have on the yellow, the angles in degrees. In blue, we have the angles in radians. You'll see that for the green part, we have some coordinates in the parentheses. So x and the y value, okay, of each point we have here on the unit circle. Okay, let's continue. So for this unit circle, we're gonna use angle in degrees and angles in radians. But you have to remember this. Every time you see 180 degrees, know that this is pi. And that's the value for a semicircle. So suppose I have a circle like this. Okay. Now, if I make this semicircle, so for suppose I have a 0, to this side, that is 180 degrees, which is pi, which is a semicircle. But if I make, okay, the full circle, so that becomes 360 degrees or 2 pi. It's very important to remember that. Now, let's make the other angles. The thing is this, if I divide 180 by 2, okay, because 180 degrees is same as a pi, I could divide the same pi by 2. So 180 degrees divided by 2 is 90 degrees. And every time I see 90 degrees, I know that this is pi over 2 in radius. Simple like that. If I divide 180 by 3, okay, because 180 degrees is same as a pi, to keep the balance, I will divide pi also by 3. And 180 degrees divided by 3 is a 60 degrees, and this is same as pi over 3. So every time I see pi over 3, I know that is a 60 degrees. If I divide 180 by 4, okay, I will do the same thing for pi. This is what? 45 degrees is equal to pi over 4. And if I continue, okay, this time I will not use a 5, but I will use a 6. Okay, so I will use a 6, and the 180 degrees divided by 6 is 30 degrees, and that 30 is pi over 6. And you will see that on the unit circle, you will not see pi over 5. You can see pi over 2, pi over 3, pi over 4, pi over 6. Okay, that's why we don't use a 5 here. We continue. Now let's see the strategy. After you understood the component, okay, or the basic of a unit circle, let's see the strategy. You see, on the left side, we have that unit circle with all angles and the coordinate of a point. Yeah, that looks like something complicated, but it's simple. It's simple. That's why we say we're going to use a strategy here. Understand that there are three angles you need to know. And these three angles, okay, summarize everything. We have a 30 degrees that is represented by the purple, okay, color here. And we call that a reference angle. So you see a reference angle, which is 30 degrees, which is pi over 6. Remember, we saw that every time we see 30 degrees, this is same as a pi over 6. The purple color here, okay, this references 4 points. So we have a this, we have a this, we have a this, we have a this. If I take the next reference angle, which is 45 degrees, okay, for the 45, this is related by the orange. So again, for the orange, we have, let me use a different color. We have this point, we have a this point, we have a this point, we have a this point. And the next thing for the green. So the green, the reference angle, every time we see the green, the reference angle here is 60. And for that, we also have 4 points for green. Okay, okay, okay. Now, based on the question, okay, based on the question, you only need maybe 30 degree or 45 degrees or 60 degree. So it depends on the question. That's why, again, you don't need to memorize it. It's just to, see the strategy. So let's break it down the strategy. For 30 degrees, okay, that's the 4 point you will have for the circle. 30 degrees is a reference angle, and we have three more angles related to that. How to get to these points? When you have your 30 degrees and you want to figure out the other values, okay, the other angle values, take 180, add the reference angle, take the same 180, subtract the reference angle, take a 360, which is a full circle, subtract the reference angle. That's what I put here. So if I do 180 degrees, okay, plus the reference angle here is 30 degrees. So that gives me the 210, which is the one we see there. Or I do 180 degrees minus 30 degrees, okay, you have a 150. Or I take the full circle, 360 degrees, minus, again, 30 degrees, you have the 330 degrees. Okay. So you'll see that the values we have here, literally, okay, radical 3 over 2, okay, and the 1 over 2, that is related to angle 30 degrees. You will see the same thing here, except that both values, okay, are negative. Remember, in quadrant 3, okay, we have the x and the y value negative. And yes, if you check this side, you'll see that all the values here are negative. If you see here, the first value is negative, which is the x value, but the y value is positive. If you see here, all the values are positive. So in quadrant 1, everything is positive. But if you see quadrant 4, you'll see that the x values, okay, are positive, but the y value are negative. You'll see here that we have the same value except that the sign are negative, okay? Or if you go here, same value except that the x value is negative, but the y value stays positive. Okay, if I go here, you'll see the x value, which the first value is positive, and the y value is negative. So from here, you know how to find the angles and how to write, again, the coordinates, the same coordinate we're using, but except that you have a positive or negative based on the location of the quadrant, the point in the quadrant. Now, if you remember, for the orange, okay, the orange point or color, we have 45 degrees, okay, as a reference angle, and we use the same strategy here to figure out the other values. So if you take a 180 degrees and you add the 45 degrees, okay, you get the 225 degrees, which is the 225 here. You do the same thing for 180 degrees, okay. This time you minus 45 degrees, you get the 135 degrees, okay. And you do 360, so full circle now, minus the same 45 degrees. This time you get a 315 degrees. And what I explained before, you also have it here. We remember that, okay, for these values, you have the same thing on this side, except that the sign are different, okay, depend on the quadrant, okay, where the point is located. Okay, we continue. You have this one, use the same thing, okay? Use the same thing, so we have a 180 plus, you have a 60 degrees, and that gives you 240, okay? 180 minus the 60 degrees give you the 120, and now full circle 360 degrees minus 60 degrees gives you the 300. And again, you see we have the coordinates, okay, of the point. And now depend on the location, okay, of the point, okay, in the quadrant, the sign can change, okay, positive or negative sign. Okay, so to get all this together, okay, focus on the quadrant one. Focus on the quadrant one because you're going to ask how they get the 1 over 2, radical 3 over 2, radical 2 over 2, and so on and so on. Yes, again, we don't need to memorize. Focus on quadrant one. In quadrant one, again, you see, we have these three angles. We have a reference angle here and the corresponding, okay, in radius. Now, take the three reference angles. So let's write it here. We have pi, okay, over 3. Okay, make a parenthesis. We have a pi over 4. Okay, follow me. We have a pi over 6, parenthesis. So if you see all the coordinates, okay, for the reference angles, okay, we have fractions. Okay, we have a fraction. The x and the y value are fractions. And the fractions here have the same denominator, which is 2. So I will make that fraction with a 2 in the denominator. Okay, fraction with 2 in the denominator. Fraction with 2 in the denominator. Now, the top, how you find the top? Just write 1, 2, 3. Okay, for the x value, I will write 1, 2, 3. Okay, from top to bottom. So, and now I go backwards. So this time I'll write 1 here, 2 here, and the 3 here. Simple like that. Now you're gonna take a square root of each value. So to take the square root, understand that you take the square root of the numerator. Yes, I have to make that precision. Take the square root of the numerator only. So the square root of the numerator, so the square root of 1 is the 1 itself. So that stays 1. But the square root of 2, because it's going to be decimal, so we leave it as square root of 2. Square root of 3 also will be a decimal, so we leave it as square root of 3, because here we don't have a decimal coordinate. Now, for the other side, square root of 1, so bottom to the top, square root of 1 is 1, so that stays that same 1. Square root of 2 is this, and we have a square root of 3. Okay, what is this? That's it. That's it. Okay, so remember, after you get this, the rest is what? Is to relate the coordinate with the trigonometry functions. Because when they will ask you the question, you're going to be in trigonometry. So in trigonometry, okay, you have to understand that the x value is related to the cosine and the y value is related to the sine. For in each circle, when you have your x coordinate and the y coordinate, understand that the x it represents the cosine of the angle and the y represents the sine of the angle. Yeah. So if I take this part, the 1 over 2 is for the cosine of what angle? 60 degrees. Okay. But the radical 3 over 2, that's for the sine of what angle? The same 60 degrees or pi over 3. Remember, pi over 3 is same as a 60 degrees. Okay, so in a question when they ask you what is sine pi over 3, the answer is radical 3 over 2. Always they have to be like that. For the unit circle, the first value is for cosine and the second value is for the sine. That's why you have these formulas here So sine theta is y, cosine theta is x. In case they ask for tangent, do the y value divided by the x value. Instead of, in case you have cosecant, so this one is for cosecant, you do 1 divided by y, but you just to flip, okay, the sine value, okay. For the secant, you're gonna flip the cosine value, so 1 over x, and the cotangent, you flip the tangent value, which will be here, x over y. So in another video, okay, you will see the explanation of the 6 trigonometry functions. Now, let's continue. So how you put everything together based on the reference, okay? So from the reference angle, like we saw all this, you know, okay, how to make this value, and you know that for the angle, okay, you know how to figure out the rest of the angles. So based on the reference angle, you can figure out the other angles. You know that. And you know that, okay, based on the quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, quadrant 4, okay, you know how the plus and minus, okay, affected the values. So in the coordinates, okay, so you put that together and that help you to solve any kind of question, okay, related to a unit circle. Yes. So same thing for this one. Yes, this one. Okay. When we move like this, the values are positive. Okay. The values are positive. Now, if we go backward, so like this, the values will be negative. So you can figure out this. That means what? Here, instead of a 330 degrees, it will be negative 30 degrees. Now, for 315 degrees, it will be negative 45 degrees. So to see this clearly, let's go back here. Let's again break it down. Okay, for 30-degree angle, okay, if you want to use negative values or negative angles, know that the 30 degrees represent the negative 330. And the 330 represent the negative 30. Same thing for the 210, you see, you just switch. So it's like a that, yes, yes, this one, yes, yes. So you switch. Okay, make it simple for yourself. Instead of do everything together, take it by reference angle and you switch. You will see here, same thing, you switch. Okay, you switch. Yes, 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 yes. You switch. Okay, that makes it simple for you. So that means what? If they ask you, what is cosine? Let's say they say, what is cosine? That's a good question. What is cosine negative 45 degrees? So the cosine negative 45 degrees, this is same as cosine, okay, 315 degrees, okay, because when you switch, okay, the 315 degrees is same as negative 45 degrees. And what will be the answer here? The cosine is the x value, is the first coordinate. So the answer will be radical 2 over 2. Simple like that, you see? And you have the same thing for the 60-degree, okay? Now, this is the question, because after we see the component and the strategy. Now we'll see how we're going to use that strategy to solve the questions. What we need to do is to try or to solve this question on your own, and then you can watch the next video to see the solution. Practice makes perfect. Thank you.